client Erdogan says it's not he, but the protesters themselves who pose a potential threat to democracy. They've been removing paving stones and breaking shop windows. Is this democracy? They say I'm a dictator. I've nothing to say if they called the person who's committed himself to serving his nation a dictator.
Recep Tayyip Erdogan has a love-hate relationship with the Turkish political community. Who is Recep Tayyip Erdogan, and where is he taking Turkey's 75 million citizens? Prime Minister's political career began as a student in the early 70s. His religious beliefs attracting him towards Necmettin Erbakan's Islamist National Salvation Party.
Necmettin Erbakan was the rising star of the Islamic movement in the late 60s, and in the 70s he became the leader. So obeying Erbakan was almost a religious duty.
In 1994, he was elected as mayor of one of the most secular cities of Turkey, Istanbul. This was the start of a turbulent era in Turkish politics. The new Welfare Party came to power in 1996, and the country had its first Islamist prime minister, Necmettin Erbakan. He angered the secular institutions, not least the military. Within a year, he was ousted and the party was banned. Meanwhile, party member Tayyip Erdogan was put on trial, accused of attacking secularism, and in 1998 imprisoned for 4 months. This episode was a turning point for the ambitious Erdogan. He began to distance himself from hardline Islamist rhetoric and look towards Europe.
He used to spend a lot of time with Hekmatyar, the Afghan Islamist leader. Now he is holding up the European Union as an example for Turkey. You are binding Turkey to the EU. You are trying to integrate Turkey into the EU. What about Islam? What about Islam? Islam doesn't exist for him.
Erdogan and fellow moderates established the Justice and Development Party, AKP, and in the 2002 general election, its message of EU integration and Western-style reforms swept it to power. Erdogan became prime minister a year later.
In Turkey, people are getting poorer every day. There's not one single national institution left that's not been sold to foreigners or privatized. Banks, mineral reserves and natural resources have all been sold. The country's being sold like a prostitute sells her own body.
The biggest civil uprising in the history of the Turkish Republic kicked off in Istanbul at 5 a.m. on Friday, May 31st. Turkish media downplayed the protests as the unrest spread like wildfire across more than 60 cities. The footage showing police brutality against protesters shocked viewers around the world. So far, more than 4,000 people have been injured and 3 deaths have been confirmed. It all started when Turkish riot police fired tear gas, pepper spray and water cannons into a peaceful protest to save Gezi Park, one of the last green areas in central Istanbul. Instead of dispersing the protesters, the violent crackdowns resulted in the social uprising growing in strength and numbers, as discontent with Prime Minister Erdogan's autocratic style and Islamic agenda hit boiling point. Upon landing in Istanbul, we jumped in a cab to see what was going down in Taksim. Traffic was stopped, so we were dropped off in Cihangir, a 10-minute walk away from Taksim Square. The closer we got to the heart of the turmoil, the more injured and traumatized people we met.
What's happened?
The tear gas bullet hit his face.
They are targeting people with those tear capsules. That's the problem.
They use them as bullets.
Young people dying, man. They just big politician. But these peoples, our country's peoples. Bu akan bizim kanımız ya, bizim kanımız. Bu akan kan bizim kanımız.
Lots of people are coming now from the square. There's been tear gas fired all day. Water cannons, pepper spray.
Biz sadece parkın ve bu insani yaşamı savunuyorduk. Ama onların yaptıkları biz yürürken şu şekilde kolumuzda biber gaz bombası fırlatmak, halkın ortasına tomalarla girmek. Yani şöyle diyebilirim ki bu başbakan kendi halkına savaş açmıştır. Ve bunu bütün dünya görmeli. Direne, direne, kazanacağız. Direne, direne, kazanacağız.
Helicopters everywhere, police sirens. And despite people running away from the square, being injured, people seem to still be going. God, I can smell the tear gas now. Okay, let's do this.
considered the first genocide of the 20th century, struck your own Armenian people.
Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan said he condemned Pope Francis on Tuesday for comments that the 1915 mass killing of Armenians was genocide and warned him not to make such a statement again. Erdogan said in a speech to a business group, "We will not allow historical incidents to be taken out of their genuine context and be used as a tool to campaign against our country." Erdogan's comments are likely to put a focus on whether the United States, a traditional ally of NATO member Turkey, will eventually use the term genocide for the mass killings.
The Turkish president has unveiled his new presidential palace amidst huge controversy. Opposition politicians have mocked the extravagance of the palace, which has 1,000 rooms and is understood to have cost more than €270 million. They say it's evidence of the president's autocratic tendencies. Environmentalists are angry that the complex has been built on one of the city's best preserved green spaces and that hundreds of trees were cut down. It was originally planned as a palace for the Prime Minister, but once Erdogan stepped down as Prime Minister and was voted in as President, the plans changed.
A call for the Prime Minister of Turkey, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, to resign amid a growing scandal over an alleged phone conversation he reportedly held with one of his sons, which was uploaded onto YouTube. The country cannot move forward with this burden, added the spokesman for the main opposition party, the CHP. Last night, the PM held a meeting with the country's head of security. Erdogan has called the recordings a treacherous attack on his office and said he can answer any allegations. Last week, the government brought in a new law that allows authorities to block access to websites. The recording shows what are a series of conversations in which Erdogan purportedly tells his son to dispose of large sums of money on the day the news broke of a graft inquiry.
Turkey's Prime Minister Recep Tayyip Erdogan is facing fresh calls to resign amid a wide-reaching corruption scandal that has exposed the country's deep institutional divisions.
Turkish President Erdogan has courted fresh controversy by claiming women should never be given equality with men and that feminists don't respect motherhood. The remarks were made at a women's conference in Istanbul. Erdogan's conservative Islamist ideology has caused growing divisions in one of the most secular and liberal Muslim-majority countries in the world. The latest misogynistic comments are unlikely to help Turkey's European Union membership bid, and economists say the low numbers of women in the workforce is a major obstacle to Turkey's development.
In a speech outlining the importance of chastity that wasn't made in 1950, but actually this week, Turkey's Deputy Prime Minister said that women should not laugh in public. To that, all the ladies around the country had one public response: utter defiance. Twitter has lit up with photos of Turkish women smiling under the hashtag Dirinkakaha, which means resist and laugh. Someone's cut a video of Turkish celebrity Saba Tuma showing her so-called unchaste side to the deputy PM. Another thinks the politician's antiquated view would even see babies falling over with laughter. Bülent Arınç also said that women should stop talking about unnecessary things on the phone to one another, such as recipes and wedding venues. Where are our girls who slightly blush, lower their heads and turn their eyes away when we look at their face, he rhetorically asked. Had a few more brave women been present, they might have told him the girls he's looking for were left in the last century.
One, two, three, into the foe. Snoop Doggy dogging like the Braves at the door, ready to make an entrance, so back and up. cause you know we're about to rip shit up. Give me the microphone first so I can bust like a bubble. Compton and Long Beach together, now you know you're in trouble. Ain't nothing but a G-Fang, baby. Too low down, niggas so we crazy. That flow is a label that pays me. Unfadable, so please don't try to fake this. But back to the lecture at hand. Perfection is perfected, so I'ma let them understand. From a young cheese perspective. And before me to get a bitch, you had to find a contraceptive. You never know she could be earning her man and learning her man. And at the same time burning her man. And you're whining with a shit, lieutenant. Ain't a pussy good enough to get me while I'm up in it. And that's really the real deal, how you feel. And now you hookers and hoes know how we feel. Well, if it's good enough to get broke off a proper chunk, I'll take a small piece of some of that funky stuff. It's like this and like that and like this and it's like that and like this and like that and it's like this and like that and like this and straight creep to the mic like a fan. Well, I'm peeping and I'm creeping and I'm creeping. But then it got caught, cause my people kept people nuts. Time for me to make my impression felt. So sit back, relax, let's rip on your seatbelt. You've never been on a ride like this before. With a producer who can rap and control the maestro. At the same time with the dope rhyme that I kick. You know and I know I flow some old funky shit to add to my collection. This selection symbolizes toe, take a toe, but don't choke if you do. You have no clue on what me and my homie Snoop Dogg came to do. It's like this and like that and like this and it's like that and like this and like that and it's like this. And who gives a fuck about hoes? So just chill till the next episode.
Elements who threaten our national security will receive the appropriate response, even if they are part of the press. When we take these kinds of decisions, what the EU thinks about it, whether it accepts it or not, doesn't matter to us at all. We don't care.
What is Erdogan afraid of?
A Russian military jet was shot down in Syria. 2 Turkish F-16 fighter jets engaged the Russian jet around 2:24 a.m. One of them shot it down with an air-to-air missile. The Russian pilot and weapons officer managed to eject, but both have been reported dead. The plane crashed into an area known as the Turkmen Mountain region in Syria. The body of one of the pilots was reportedly discovered by Syrian rebels. A rescue helicopter was also reportedly shot down by Syrian rebels while it was searching for the pilots. Russian Defense Ministry officials say the jet never left Syrian airspace, and Russian President Vladimir Putin called the attack a stab in the back. This is the first time a member of NATO has been publicly acknowledged to have downed a Russian or Soviet military aircraft since the 1950s.
Death and destruction.
We're going to keep increasing the pressure on the Assad regime and working with the Syrian opposition. Prime Minister has been at the forefront of the international effort to push for a transition to a democratic Syria without Bashar Assad. We both agree that Assad needs to go. He needs to transfer power to a transitional body. That is the only way that we're going to resolve this crisis. And we're going to keep working for a Syria that is free from Assad's tyranny, that is intact and inclusive of all ethnic and religious groups, and that's a source of stability, not extremism.
Bizim derdimiz otokratik bir rejimden, bir diktatörlükten Suriye'yi kurtarmaktır. Bu da öyle zannediyorum ki demokrasiye inanmış tüm ülkelerin ortak sorunu. Bunu başarmak için bu yolda gayretimizi sürdüreceğiz.
Ethnic Kurds living in the southeast of Turkey are accusing the government of, in effect, helping Al-Qaeda in Syria by allowing militants to cross the border. Turkey denies that.
The Turkish support for ISIS continues as thousands of ISIS gangs have crossed the Turkey border into ISIS areas on September 14th, just before the renewed heavy attacks on Kobani.
Bir Gün newspaper published pictures of the private hospital in Antep where ISIS members wounded in Syria and Rojava received treatment. According to Bir Gün, the 6-story hospital, 1 kilometer from the Antep governor's office, was established for the treatment of gang members. In the last 8 months, at least 700 gang members have been treated there. Last week, a Turkish nurse complained on the same matter by writing a letter to parliament and the police, saying she is sick and tired of treating ISIS.
In the current version of our war in the Middle East, there are a few things that we know. 1. ISIS represents an existential threat to our nation. 2. This massive threat requires no sacrifices on anybody's part, because 3, we can take care of the whole problem with airstrikes and our trusty allies. But there turns out that one little snag.
The Iraqi army has collapsed, that there is no real Iraqi army.
That's weird. Just... Because I do remember the United States spending 8 years and $25 billion training somebody's army over there. Does Iraq have a twin brother, perhaps? All right, but fine. The Iraqi army won't be there to reap the strategic advantage of our high-tech boom-boom juice. Who needs an army when you have an army of coalition friends?
Cracks in the coalition.
Cracks in the what now?
Cracks in the coalition. The president talks today to key allies after meeting with nearly 24 military leaders from the countries he's counting on to help fight ISIS. But are they all willing to pull their weight?
President Obama is there to give a few attaboys, some slaps on the back. Thanks for joining the coalition. Thanks for your support.
The allies don't want to fully commit to defeating ISIS unless they get a meet and greet with the president? What are they, 14-year-olds at a Justin Bieber concert?
Turkish warplanes went on the attack Monday.
All right. I get it. They want the credit. It's all starting to make sense now.
But instead of pounding ISIL positions in Syria, the Turks attacked Kurdish fighters in Turkey from the PKK, a group with strong ties to the Kurds fighting ISIL in Kobani.
What the That was never in risk. What? Why?
Because the PKK were shelling military outposts in that area. The Kurds extremely upset about Turkey not allowing Kurds into Kobani to help the group there fight ISIL back.
There was a very brutal, 30-year insurgency where Kurds were trying to fight the Turkish army to create their own independent state.
I'm starting to think that the British just going in there and drawing a bunch of lines and saying, good luck, everybody, wasn't such a great idea. Isn't there anyone out there who just wants to go in and fight some ISIS?
Members of a motorcycle gang from the Netherlands have traveled to Iraq to help Kurds there fight ISIS. The bikers went to Iraq to, quote, exterminate the rodents of ISIS.
We always knew there was going to have to be some boots on the ground. I guess we can't be picky about what kind of boots.
Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan accused Russia of slander on Wednesday over Moscow's allegations that Ankara had bought oil from the Islamic State jihadists in Syria. No one has the right to engage in slander against Turkey by saying that Turkey is buying oil from ISIS, Erdogan said in comments broadcasted by Turkish television on his visit to Qatar. Russia's defense ministry said on Wednesday it had proof that Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan and his family were benefiting from the Islamic State-held territory in Syria and Iraq. In a briefing in Moscow, defense ministry officials displayed satellite images which they said showed columns of tanker trucks loaded with oil at installations controlled by ISIS in Syria and Iraq, and then crossing the border into neighboring Turkey. Turkey is the main consumer of the oil stolen from its rightful owners, Syria and Iraq, according to information we've received. The senior political leadership of the country, President Erdogan and his family, are involved in this criminal business, said Deputy Defense Minister Anatoly Antonov. He continues by saying, in the West, no one has asked questions about the fact that the Turkish president's son heads one of the biggest energy companies, or that his son has been appointed energy minister. Officials said that the Russian Air Force's bombing campaign had made a significant dent in the Islamic State's ability to produce, refine, and sell oil. We have every reason to think that the decision to shoot down our plane was dictated by the desire to protect the oil supply lines to Turkish territory, said Vladimir Putin on the fringe of the climate talks, echoing similar accusation he made last week. Adding fuel to the fire benefits no one, said Erdogan. We are saddened by the disproportional response by Russia to an incident in which the whole world agrees we are right. If these responses continue, we will take our own measures, said Erdogan, without elaborating. Erdogan has been accused by numerous leaders around the world for turning a blind eye to what ISIS is doing in Syria and Iraq.
أنا أوجه رسالة خالصة وأرجو من كل من يسمع هذه الرسالة أن يرسلها إلى السفارة التركية بالصوت والصورة ثم يترجمها، وهذه أمانة أضعها في كل عنق سواء كان في أي بلد تترجم وتقرأ. أيها الرئيس التركي ويا رئيس الوزراء، عهدنا منكم مواقف مشرفة رفعتم بها رؤوسنا كمسلمين وعرب، وأنتم بلد الجوار ومن أقوى دول الجوار علينا، فأرجو ألا تندموا بتأخر نصرة الشعب السوري كما ندمتم في تأخر نصرة الشعب الليبي.
Still on his wife.